Good morning and welcome to your Daily Gameface. I'm Dr. Kimberly Lannon and I'm here and I think it's our fifth. We've passed a month of podcast.
Yes.
We are in our second month of my brand new podcast of
Yes,
your
it's
Daily
number
Gameface.
5. Yep.
And I'm here with Lou, my lovely producer, who keeps us
Lovely.
entertained every week. We
try.
have lots to talk about. I actually wanted to thank people. People have been giving great feedback to both of us and complimenting us on our rapport and our back and forth and how good chemistry we have to be able to talk. So it's very good. And
I'm just sitting in the front row of the class, that's all.
But this last week has been fabulous because I got a lot of feedback from people around the topic of eating and weight loss and motivation and things like that. So I thought we'd start off a little bit more talking about that because I had some questions and people asked a little bit more about that. You've actually mentioned that, you know, your weight loss has kind of given you the impetus to do other things and be more motivated and kind of turned your life around a lot.
I think I mentioned it last week. It's no coincidence that all the good work that I've been able to do over the last few years started with weight loss because I think it gives you the tools. I think, A, it gives you the tools, B, it gives you encouragement because it's easy to get going with the weight loss. Those first few pounds really are relatively easy to lose, and you start to feel some success, and things start to work, and you gain some confidence, and you can take this forward into other areas of your life.
Well, right. And so it's interesting because people will talk about, you know, different things giving them the impetus to move forward. And weight loss seems to be one of the biggest things. Oh, good morning, Terry. But weight loss seems to be one of the big things that motivates people because it kind of opens the door, even though you'd think it's something insignificant. It's pretty significant to people because it holds people back, or just getting a better relationship with food, not necessarily having to lose, you know, hundreds of pounds or even 50 pounds. It's just a couple pounds or moving a lifestyle change around for some people.
Yep.
So I know that you had talked about it was a significant weight loss, and many people have that, but it's just the motivation
50 pounds
because
at the
it sort of
time,
sets you up to find purpose. It gives you a goal. It sets you up for goal setting. People always talk about having goals and getting to a bigger spot based on you know, the ultimate goal. But it's really about getting those little pieces in place so that you feel accomplished, feel more motivated, have better self-esteem, and how big a deal that is. And you can find that not only in weight loss, you can find that in, you know, changing jobs, bettering your relationships, exercising without weight loss. Just depends on what your goal is. But man, it can really change
It's two major things that weight loss will do for you. It gives you a sense of control. That you probably lacked before. This is one of the base issues. You don't feel like you have control over your life and the things that happen to you. Secondly, helps your self-image.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's probably a baseline issue as well.
Right.
So you start to feel worthwhile, and you start to feel like, hey, I've got a little control over my life.
Right. So that's an important piece, I think, in general, that you can apply to most things in mental health and just your whole mind-body connection, is that feeling the sense of control or feeling out of control. Most people, when they aren't making changes, it's because they feel they don't have control over the situation, so they just give in to the thing that they're doing, which is the complacency or the thing that keeps them stuck, or they don't know any different because they don't feel they have control over it. And the one thing they do have control over is the thing that they're doing or not doing, which is either overeating or restricting in some cases, or, you know, you can take it right to any kind of addiction issue.
Right.
I mean, eating disordered behavior is right along the lines of addiction. So you have people that have drug addiction, alcoholism, gambling, sexual addictions, shopping addictions. They're all within that same, we talked about that brain space last week, the hypothalamus in a way. You know, the area of the brain that controls our emotional center has that piece to it that just draws us to stay stuck because we don't have control. But where we find control is in those things.
Right.
And they're the things that aren't necessarily good for us, you know, obviously.
Yep.
So,
what was the acronym you used last week?
What?
What was the acronym you used last week?
HALT.
HALT, yeah.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So when you're, and that's applied to all
those
isms.
I was going to say, can be applied to everything we just talked about.
If you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, you're more likely to engage in the behavior that's not going to be your best choice, typically. Hungry meaning not you're, you know, just being regulated to do your 3 meals a day or whatever it is. It's hungry that you're just constantly, you know, you finish a meal and go right to the next meal. Like I'm thinking about the next one. You're eating breakfast while planning lunch, while planning the snack in between, while planning the dinner, while planning tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's the hungry, but angry being on the continuum, again, to review that is, it could be frustration, agitation, hurt, resentment, sadness, those things
Yep.
on the continuum. Anger has a big continuum, and it's kind of a catch-all word. And then lonely, people have attachment connection issues with relationships or poor relationships, or they're overly attached,
Yep.
over smothered with relationships, codependency, abandonment issues. Lots of people who have been adopted, who've never resolved out issues with that whole process, or
Right.
or things along those lines, loneliness, or just the fact that people are just lonely in the world because they're socially disconnected or just disconnected as people. And then obviously tired, fatigue, overworked, overstressed, over.
Right.
And then boredom. And boredom, people always say, I'm not any of those things. I'm bored. And I say, well, boredom falls in the lonely,
Yeah.
tired.
Right.
Because you don't know what to do with yourself because you're not connecting with anything or anybody. And then you're tired because you're working so hard to feel connected. But then what do? You go, in the case we were talking about last week, you go to food.
Yep.
Ben and Jerry's is your boredom food, or, the box of, or the bag of popcorn, or
You seek immediate gratification, whether it be
Exactly.
food or whether it be alcohol, whether it be gambling, whether it be shopping,
right, drugs or whatever. Because
Yep.
because people initially feel that it makes me feel good. All those things you just said makes me feel good. It absolutely, right on the top, makes me feel good. But that doesn't last long. And
No.
by not lasting long, even I'm talking 20, 30 minutes before, when we're talking food, you eat a carbohydrate that's not like, bagels. We talked about
Yeah.
bagels, or we
Yeah.
talk about pasta, or we talk about, anything fried, or, the yummy
Yeah.
comfort foods. Those pass by you emotionally, dysregulate you immediately, and you either feel really tired. There's the hungry, angry, lonely,
Right.
tired. And then immediately you have to fill the need again because, well, it felt good. You filled up the cup and now I feel great.
Right.
But it quickly depletes and you got to do it again. So people just seek that out, whether it's, shopping. I mean, I have clients all the time that come in and say, oh, I bought this and I wanted it and now I don't want it anymore. So now I'm going to go get something else. And I have clients that will buy something and then they'll get it home and then they didn't really want it, so they'll return it. It was
Oh,
just,
no,
it's
it's just the
high
act of
the
buying
buy.
it. Right,
It's
yeah.
the filling up. It's the same thing as the eating. It gives a sense of control over all the different things that they're trying to control for, which is the lack.
Is it fair to say these people, we talk about being in the moment
Yeah.
and being able to control your ruminations. I'm a ruminator, or I
Yeah.
was a ruminator. I've got it, I think I've got it
Did you
under
say you're
control.
a closet ruminator?
No, I'm a pretty active.
Oh, I thought you said closet. Okay.
No,
I didn't hear you.
No, I'm a ruminator, but I think I'm a little past it now.
Okay.
But all those things take you out of whatever you're ruminating about.
Right.
And for the moment, whether it be sitting down and eating some, fried foods, or whether it be shopping,
Right.
getting in the car, going to the mall, finding something, buying something for that hour,
Right.
you're out of what's bothering you, what's
Right.
haunting you. You're out of your mind,
Right.
and you're into the moment.
Right.
And so that's what all of this provides.
Right. So that's
A break from that rumination, a break from that weight, whatever it is you're carrying.
So it's the exact same thing that we would use to treat the issue is the same thing that you're doing. Is like you just said, when you're going to the mall, when you're eating something, whatever, it's a distractor from what's going on in your head, or
Right.
the connection between what's going on in your head and what's going on in your heart. Intellectually, most people know that it's not good for them. But then to connect the two, to emotion and intellect together and work together, going to the mall and then coming back is just a distractor.
Yeah.
I don't feel good today, so I'm going to go do this. Or I don't feel good in this moment, so I'm going to do this. And when we try to help people stop doing that behavior that's not good for them, it's, you never have someone just quit cold turkey usually.
No,
Because what happens? Not good things
No.
usually. Someone stops smoking all of a sudden, and people always say, I stopped smoking, I gained 15 pounds. Right, because you
Substituted.
didn't replace it
Yeah.
with another distractor that was a healthier distractor.
Right.
So, I mean, simple, you could read this in any self-help book, you don't have to go to a therapist for this, is that if you want to stop a behavior that's not doing good by you, you need to replace it with another distractor that's healthier, and it's going to be a lifestyle change. It's going to maintain
Right.
the healthy space. But that's really hard because when you've habituated and you've gotten reinforcement to keep doing that other behavior that feels good but is bad for you, it's really hard to break that. So you have to kind of do little increments of distractors.
But the
So
ultimate goal, the bigger job here, is to be able to attenuate your focus, to
Yeah.
to be able to, and that's done in baby steps. Like when you're lonely, and I went through this, it was one of those things you'd be sitting there, I've got 4 hours to kill. What am I going to do with myself?
Right.
Right? And you're trying to find that. So you just basically, you don't look at the 4 hours. You say, well, what am I going to do for the next half hour?
Right.
And just take it in baby steps. And then you learn the skills. You develop
Right.
the skills to set everything down for a while.
And so.
And that gets addictive, by the way.
Well, of course.
The
Well, because
ability
you're
to set
replacing-
everything
you're
down
replacing
for
an
yeah.
old habit with a new habit.
Yeah.
That hopefully is not going to hurt you in some way, right? So, I mean, we're creatures of the habit, so therefore we're going to do that. When you're building on those, this is what I find in most people, not just the client population. I say most human beings have a hard time when they're trying to switch a behavior going into getting to their big goal because they're only thinking about the end goal.
Right.
This is like my athletes. When an athlete comes in and I say, "What's your goal?" They say, "I want to win."
Yeah.
I cringe because inside because
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's a great goal. We all want to win. We all want to be the top dog. We all want to be the best. But how do you get there? And 99% of the time people say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Even if you have all the tools in your head, you don't know how to access them. So going back to what you were just saying, those little teeny steps, and people get impatient with the little steps because if it's
Yeah.
not automatic, it doesn't come right away.
Well,
People get frustrated.
we're
but
an
it is
instant
about breaking
gratification
that-
society.
Right.
It's about getting away from
instant gratification,
Yep.
impulse. Let's go. Let's get it now. Like I want to be satisfied. I want to see success now. And if it isn't, it's too much work.
It's more like I want to run the marathon. Okay, well, how about you run 3 miles?
Right.
You know,
Right.
and
Exactly.
you get comfortable with that, and then we'll go up to 5, and we'll see how that goes.
Right. And notorious, notorious athletes athletes that are coming into even running a marathon. So I'm getting ready for the Boston Marathon this year, and I do workshops on talking about how to run your best marathon and mentally and getting through because that's really, I mean, your body knows how to carry you through, but it's the mental piece. But a lot of times people won't train for it, and then they're like, I just got to get this time. I've got to be 3:35.
Yeah.
I got to beat it. But then you ask them, well, how are you going to do that? How do you they're like, well, I've trained, and then they've never done the marathon before, and they get out there, and they end up at whatever they do. But their goal was just the time, as opposed to
Yeah.
3 miles at a time or 1 mile at a time, or what are you focusing on? Is your body, are you checking in with your body? Are you checking in with your mindset? What are you telling yourself? A couple years ago when I did the Boston Marathon, personal example, it was the worst weather that we've had in 42 years.
Yeah.
I mean, when I tell you it was rough mentally, it was rough, right? So from the beginning of the race, when I started, I mean, it's sort of a psych out when you get to the start line, and they usually put you in corrals. There were no corrals. They said it was because it was so bad the weather. They just said just go.
Yeah.
Right. So you're in a different zone. You're going and you're running along, and in my head I kept saying, if I make it 1 more mile, I won't quit. But the whole time I was doing mental gymnastics of don't quit. It's freezing. I couldn't lift my head up because it was driving wind and rain and snow and sleet. And though it was, and it's just about that mental goal by goal. And I had to do that. And because of, I think, what I do for a living, plus being in the caliber gymnast that I was and being tough mentally, that I was able to break it down. But most people don't do that. You have to teach that to them or give them a little bit of a pathway.
It's a perfect analogy. Most people are running the whole marathon. You weren't running the whole marathon. You were running it on a mile by mile basis, or a goal by goal basis.
Right.
And then that adds up.
And it does.
Yeah.
And that was the only way I know for me, and for other people I know that I talk to about it. For most of us, that was the only way we were making it through. It was if I don't freeze, if I don't have hypothermia, if I'm not dying at the next mile, I'll keep going. And then, by the time I got to Heartbreak Hill, which is, only 5.5, 6 miles left for the most part, I had someone on the hill that looked at me and said, I know what you're thinking. Stop thinking quit. And I said, I wasn't thinking quit. It's just mile by mile.
Yeah.
So they know because they know how I practice that. But it's a goal. It's the distractor. Like it all ties together, distracting by one little bit at a time so that you can fulfill the goal instead of it being like, oh my gosh, I'm in Hopkinton. I'm 10 feet off the start line and I don't want to do this because I got 26 miles.
Yeah, you think, of course, 26 miles is overwhelming, but the rest of that mile is not overwhelming. Do the rest of that mile.
Exactly.
Right?
And if you so that's with anything. So if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to quit, smoking, if you're trying to beat alcohol or drugs or gambling, sex, whatever it is, or bad relationship, you have to do it a little bit at a time. Sometimes ripping the Band-Aid off works because then you have to do it, because you have to sometimes. But by and large, if you just set yourself up to do little bits at a time, so you feel like you were saying accomplished, you feel like you've made a little forward movement. You're not looking at 50-pound loss and saying, "Oh my gosh, it's 50 pounds." You're saying, "This week I'm going to do 2 pounds."
Right.
2 pounds is once you get that,
Yep.
it gives you like adrenaline. It gives you a motivation. It starts you down the track to go faster.
You gather momentum.
You got the success, accomplishment. Because underneath all that stuff that people do, this is for everybody. Everyone sits with that feeling of insecurity and inferiority, of feeling less than when they haven't accomplished, or when they have failed, or when they are ashamed or embarrassed that I said I was going to do this and it didn't happen, and therefore it's easier to slip back into the devil that you know,
Right.
and then kind of hide and say, well, it didn't work.
Yep.
Right.
But with weight loss, again, as a great beginner for this types of work, if you fall short of your goal, you go to lose 40 and you lose 30, or you lose 25, you still lost 25.
Right.
You still got to feel good about that
Right.
that accomplishment. It still feeds on itself.
Right.
As I mentioned, I think last week, I'm big on golf tips.
Yes.
And there was a meme, and by golf tips I mean just these little thoughts that can help you through these things.
Right.
And there was a meme in the middle of it all for me that said, I don't want to be lonely for the rest of my life, but I'm okay tonight.
Right.
And so first of all, that brings it down to a baby step. It brings it down to something you accomplish. I can be all right tonight.
Right.
And it changes your mindset about that, so that the prospect of being alone, being lonely, isn't so oppressing.
Exactly. Yeah. And making it so that, like, that example right there is so important, about acknowledging on a day-to-day, kind of like the mile-by-mile basis, on a day-to-day basis. Yep. Did anyone die today? Did anything bad really happen? No one lost, out on something big. That thing that happened this morning wasn't the end of the world. No one. With my kids that I see, I'm always like, did anyone burst into flames? Did anyone combust? Because you have to give it that perspective of, wow, give it perspective that it's okay, you're okay, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But people just, threat generators. Most people have that catastrophizing, awfulizing. It's going to be terrible. My life is ending because I didn't reach that end goal. Well, today you did, because you did some good things.
But to use loneliness as an example, you sit there, and when you're lonely, you're sentenced to try to figure it out.
Right.
So every day you're trying to figure out the rest of your life. Every day, how do I not be lonely?
Right.
It's a huge burden. It's a huge thought process. You can't figure out the rest of your life. You're okay today.
Right.
Have a good meal. Go to a movie.
Right.
Everything's fine tonight.
Right.
And that's really all you can deal with. You can't figure out the rest of your life today.
Right. Well, and the best laid plans, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people, I have this happen to me all the time. I'll put out a plan, but now I've come to know in over time and experience and so on, that I lay down those plans.
Yeah.
And they're likely to change, or something comes up. I mean, I had a huge event this weekend. I had fully planned.
Yeah.
And a very large thing happened to totally derail it.
Oh yeah.
And I had less than 24 hours to put it back on the track. But at the end of the day, even before I got to the end of the day, in my head, right when it happened, I was like, there's nothing I can do. Now, 10 years ago, I probably would have been in panic. I was a little stressed about it, because who wouldn't be? But
sure.
I mean, the change in just being able to do that mindset shift cognitively and thinking, at the end of the day, no one's going to die. It's not the end of the world. People will understand. Things happen.
Yep.
Because you get into a place of reality.
Right.
What's really true about the situation. It's not the end of the world. But a lot of that, I mean, it ties into the feeling of control. It also ties into that worry. I think we've mentioned it before, and I might have talked about it last week, the worrying about what other people think.
Oh, yeah.
Letting go of, who cares what people are going to think about this, when it's really about, am I okay with what's going on, because this is what I have control over. So they all go together, and when you can get that satisfaction that works, it's great. But every client I see, and most of my friends and personal relationships, and people worry about what other people think.
Yeah.
And that's not to say you should respect what people want and think about you and so on and so forth, but it's not about like curtailing or changing your whole behavior based on what other people are wanting from you, what they expect of you, and so on and so forth. Oh, Lou, I just wanted to take a quick shout out. So Noe has just written in and just said hello to me. He's actually coming in from Cabo San Lucas. That's where he lives. So he's
Nice.
in Mexico. So he's listening to us from Mexico.
Nice.
Pretty
Very
cool.
nice. I love it.
So welcome, Noe. Thank you for listening.
I want to go back to plans for a second.
Yes, plans?
Yeah.
Yes.
When you're talking about it, people want to plan.
Yes.
And, anxiety is the feeling that you have to have everything figured out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other little golf tips, one of the other mantras that I carry along all the time is, I don't have that figured out yet.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Right.
You got to have both of those concepts. You got to accept you can't figure it all out because, as you know, things happen.
Right.
There was a guy who was speaking on this type of subject, and he does these seminars. He does whole weekend seminars and things like that, more of a mindfulness type of thing. And he was talking about someone asking him about how he does. He came from a stand-up comedian background.
Okay.
But he says, how do you come out on stage for 2 hours and just talk? And he was saying, he goes, yeah, we all face that. And he goes, I used to plan.
Yeah.
I used to plan out the whole 2 hours. And this question had come just after he picked a woman out of the audience and talked to her for like 20 minutes. And it was great. That segment was great. And he goes, but when you plan, you close off opportunity.
That's right.
Often. He goes, I could have planned this whole 2 hours and just gone, step 1 to step 2 to step
Right.
3 and filled 2 hours, but I wouldn't have got to talk to her.
Right.
Basically it's about walk as far as you can see and then see what you can see from there.
Exactly.
And it's just, that's empowering
It
because
it is.
it turns,
it's freeing. It's
Yeah.
very flexibility and it provides flexibility and freeing, and you're not as structured and closed. The word is right. It's not closed off.
right. It
Right.
turns that main source of anxiety, which is the unknown,
Yep.
the future, what's going to happen after all these permutations of what could possibly happen,
Right.
that I sit there and figure out every scenario
Right.
till the end. And it turns into opportunity because, like, no, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but maybe, you start understanding that presents opportunities that's probably a little bit better than what your plan would have been a year ago or 6 months ago.
Exactly.
Because you know more and
Well,
you're
and-
more capable.
Yeah, and so when people plan, when they overplan, let's
Yeah.
some planning is good, but
Plan's
when we're
not
talking
bad.
like the
It's not a bad
planners,
thing,
the
but yeah.
over-structured, everything has to be. That's all that sense of needing to have control because everyone's planning for the what ifs, the disasters. Plan for the worst case scenario because if it happens, we're all set. But one, you can't ever plan for all of that. But people have that illusion or delusion of control that if I have it all planned out in my head, and I cover all the things that could possibly go wrong, all the things that could possibly go right, I'm good.
Yep.
And like you just said, at the end of the day, it actually paralyzes most people because it's, analysis paralysis. Growing up, my dad always used to say,
Yeah.
analyze, paralyze.
Yep.
And that's exactly
And it also puts the blinders on for you
Yes.
because you become attached to the plan.
right.
And you're
you
missing
can't move
opportunity.
from it. And so if something happens, you can't adjust to it. And that's in every kind of thing that could happen to you on a daily basis. And people get so derailed by that.
Yep.
They get so upset. Something happens, at 10 o'clock in the morning to someone, and their whole plan of their whole day can be shot, and sometimes gone into like 2 or 3 days because people get so
Yeah.
upset or so discouraged, and then they can't regroup and rally about it
Right.
at all. Nothing.
And it's about this illusion. It's about the misconceptions around control.
Yes.
Because people think they can control the things they can't control, and they don't think they can control the things they can control.
right.
Everybody's got it all mixed up.
Right.
So you set yourself up for constant disappointment when you think you can control the things you can't control.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So you plan for it, and everything's going to go this way, and then one thing happens, like, oh God,
Right, and then
it's a
people
disaster.
and people get disappointed, and
Yep.
and so I've had people over the years. I've had colleagues that will tell their clients to lower their expectations. I don't ever tell people to lower their
No,
expectations
that's
because
not it.
I
Yeah.
don't think that that's really the most accurate way of describing things. I think it's about adjusting your expectation by being realistic with a range of things, and it doesn't have to be really complicated. But if you have an expectation and it's up here, it's not about lowering the bar. It's about adjusting it to something that's a little bit more reasonable at that time. Still keeping maybe that expectation up there, but having some in between so that in case those happen, it's okay. It's not,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't hit that bar. I have a picture analogy that I use with clients, and when I teach about it, is people often, when they want to get to that top stair, which is the end goal, top stair is 10, bottom stair obviously 1. people who won't do the work because they don't know how to do the work, not because they can't, and it's not because they, they lack the ability, it's just they don't know how. They'll try to jump from step 1 to
Yeah.
step 10. What happens, it's like you can imagine visually bumping into the second, third stair, falling down the stairs and having to start over. So this is about really saying, we're just going to do one stair at a time, which is overwhelming to people. But once people start seeing that it actually gets them further, it's like, oh, that's how you get to top 10 stair.
Because when you break it down to steps
Right.
like that, the whole baby steps process, when you
Right.
break it down to baby steps, you generally break it down to stuff you can control.
Right.
It's like, I can, you take on a small task, I can do this, I can accomplish
Right.
that. And that just starts the ball rolling, and,
Right.
and the momentum starts to go that way.
Right.
I used to question all the time. The big thing for me, I remember asking my therapist on several occasions, is I don't know the difference between what I should make happen and what I should let happen.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, you can't make a lot of things happen.
Right.
You can do things that you can control, but you can't make things happen.
Right. And so 2 things about that. The should.
Yeah.
So if we were talking about it, and I'd say take the should out,
Yep.
first of all, because there should. Who says should?
Right.
So that's the committee in your head telling you that,
Yeah.
right? That's the
I
committee
like that, the
saying,
committee in your head.
there's a committee. We don't know who they are. They don't have faces. They don't have names. But there's a committee telling you should or shouldn't do something.
Yep.
So taking that off the table and then being able to say, all right, I can move forward. And what do I actually have control over? And I ask people that all the time. What do you have really control over?
Yeah.
You have control over what you wear, what you eat, what you think, how you respond, how you react, how you drive.
Yeah.
I'm running out of stuff, right? You don't have control over anything really outside of you.
No.
You have control over your choices, but people and things on the outside externally can influence that.
I'll give you a big one you can control.
You what?
I'll give you a big one you can control.
Okay.
The key one. You can control your focus.
Yes. Yes.
And again, that's something that most people don't understand they can.
Right.
I remember at a certain point in my life, I sat there, I wanted 3 things. I wanted a new place to live, wanted a new car, and I wanted a dog.
Okay.
And so what happened is you just set that little intention, and what happens is, at that point, this is years ago, so you're picking up the paper and you're looking at the want ads, for apartments to live, and you're looking
Right.
for cars, and that just sets you down the path. It doesn't really accomplish anything except that I saw an ad.
Right.
And it's like, oh, that place looks interesting. I started making phone calls about it, ended up there. It was great.
Yeah.
It's like I couldn't control what was out there, but I
Right.
could control my approach towards it, which was, you know what? I'm going to look in the paper
Exactly.
because I've decided I want a new place to live.
Well, and I think you and I have talked about this somewhere in the last 5 weeks, is that people wait for stuff to happen to them.
Yeah.
Or they wait for it to be created. Like somehow it's going to pop up by osmosis. You could sit there and think of those 3 things you really wanted, and there they are. And day after day, what are you doing about it? Well,
Yeah.
people will wait for the external feedback to come in of,
No, it's
the
actions.
apartment or the dog or
Yeah.
whatever's going to show up on your lap by, I don't know how.
You've got
When
to
you
take
ask people
actions.
how you
Yeah.
getting there,
Yep.
they don't say, did you look in the paper? Did you, that's where a lot of times I end up coming into the picture to say, here's 4 or 5 ideas to get you going. And most people, even though it might seem really basic, they're so stuck that they'll say, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And it's not because the person's not capable or smart. It's just they're stuck.
Because they're thinking and ruminating and planning and scheming about where they're going to be 5 years from now.
Right.
As
Instead of-
opposed to today,
Right.
look at the want ads
Right.
for your next job.
Exactly. Right. Which then when you say, some people get into that whole, it's so overwhelming because they look, you look at the want ads, or you go into, online to Indeed, or
Yeah.
you look at LinkedIn, or, there's
Well,
so much
that's
out
fine.
there. People
Put
get-
it down and come back.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but people are so focused on now,
Yeah.
get it done now.
Yep.
But it's a process. And as cliche and as cheesy as that sounds, it is a journey. And you're going to shift, and you're going to move, and you might find something. I always say to people that you're going to find something if you're, look on LinkedIn. All of a sudden you might be in one focus, and then something pops up and you're like, oh.
Yep.
And that might be the opportunity that you didn't even plan on, because now you were flexible enough to see that opening because you went there.
Yep.
But people shut themselves off, structure, narrow, and then they don't go there. Because
Well, back to physical health, how many times do you see the threshold effect where it's like they think, well, the gym's overwhelming. Everyone's going to be looking at me. I'm not in good shape. Everyone's going to be judging me. It's getting in that door for the first time
Right.
and spending an hour there whether it be the treadmill or whatever it is,
Right.
or go in with a trainer, go with someone there, and just spend some time in there. That first threshold is often really important.
Right.
And once you get over that threshold, everything becomes easier. Oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
Because
Because
nothing
it's-
is
Because
as
it's
bad
not
as you think
big
it's
as it
going to
is
be.
in the head of
Right.
the person thinking of it. I have this all the time with clients. I mean, this is one of the biggest things with people who are doing weight loss or trying to make a change lifestyle, even if it's not weight loss, it's just for physical health issues.
Yep.
Is, they'll either say that they're too heavy, and that they don't want to be embarrassed by going into the gym, and so they won't even, and they'll go it really early in the morning so that they think that no one can see them, or really late at night where they think no one can see them. And I always say, everybody's thinking the same thing and no one's looking at you because everyone's worried about the exact same thing that
Right.
you are. And
Yeah.
and people don't believe that, but it's really true, because if you go into the gym and if you've spent time in the gym, no one's looking at anybody else.
Nope.
Really. Everyone's focused on whether they're being looked at. Because, I mean, certainly there's certain people that will be looking, but by and large, that's not it. But just getting people to break down that little teeny goal of, I have one client that I just get him to go to the door. We've worked up to getting to the door,
Yeah.
because he was in really good shape a couple years ago, and then he got sick, and then something else happened, and so on and so forth. So now he's embarrassed.
Oh, so he had a lot of self-image around
Right.
his physical build and his health.
And it
Yeah.
changed.
Yep.
And so he's embarrassed, and he thinks that the people that knew him as this really, jacked, healthy looking person who's now gained a lot of weight, he doesn't want them to see him like that. And so I always say, but what if they see you outside of the grocery store? How's it different than seeing you at the gym? And as soon as I said that, we got inside the gym.
Yep.
Like, it was because he was stuck with the image of him in the gym. And I said, but if they see you at the grocery store, they're going to see the same thing.
Yep.
They're going to think the same thing that you think, if that's really what they're thinking. Wow, that was a lot of thinking, right? And,
Yeah.
and he just didn't think beyond that scope, because his image of who he is as a person is this. Everyone revered him in his mind, that he was a guru of athleticism,
Right.
and physique. And I'm like, and by the way, if you tell people that you were sick, not that you have to, but if you tell someone, hey, I was really sick and I got out of the gym, people are going to be like, I get it. No one's going to say,
Well-
oh, wow, you're fat, you're terrible, you just are a mess.
I was just going to say, people who might have known him before will look at him and go, dude, what happened?
Right.
I got sick and I fell off. And they're going to say, all right, come on.
Right.
They're not going to just say it's okay. They're going to say, all right, come on, let's
Right.
go.
Yeah, they're not going in the back
Right.
room going, oh my gosh,
Right.
he's awful,
Yeah.
and then not support him and
And
walk away. They're going to say, wow,
the
let's
truth
do
of
it.
the-
I'm so glad you're back.
The truth of the gym thing, and it's about this, it goes back to thoughts and not facts.
Right.
People are thinking that everyone's judging them at the gym.
Right.
I see somebody at the gym that's heavy or old, and I look at them and I go, you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that
Good for you.
I'd rather them be there than not.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's with everything, because that's the judgment. People, in the running world or in athleticism, people will judge all the time, and they do, because
Yep.
if you're not fast enough, or whatever that means, or if you're not thin enough, or if you're not built enough, or if you, it's that same judgment of, but you're out there. 99% of the other people aren't doing that, so what does it matter?
Yep.
Are you okay? And it goes back to the internalization of, are you okay with you? You're out there, you're doing it. If I'm looking at someone and like you, and they're in the gym and they're on the treadmill, they're doing something, that's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
At least it's better than sitting on the couch at home.
Love it.
eating,
And I take
the
inspiration
Pop-Tarts.
mostly.
You what?
I take inspiration.
Yeah,
If that 300-pound guy can do a half an hour in the elliptical, why can't I do it?
exactly.
Or I feel bad. I should be doing it. Good for him.
Right.
He's killing it over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's and I think that people, when you talk to people that are, and I do talk to people at the gym all the time about, their decision to work out if they're next to me, or why they're doing it, and most people know me, what I do for a living, that are near me in the gym, and it's a range. It's like really great in shape people, but also people that are overweight, but they're in shape because they go
Yeah.
to the gym. They make a lifestyle change. They may not be skinny as a rail, but that's not the point.
Right.
But I always talk about, what's your motivation for coming? What do you do? And it's just, they just want to feel better, or to have the sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. I went and did something instead of sitting on the couch, or sitting, doing
Yep.
the pattern of my life, which is get up, eat, go to work, eat, come back, eat, lay
Yep.
down, get up, and
Yeah.
you're like, I'm doing something else.
The goal isn't always skinny or buff.
Right.
Like for me, it was
feel
I'm
good.
burning calories.
Right.
Secondly, for me, I'm kind of at the age now where I'm thinking, I'd like to be able to walk 15, 17 years from now. I'd like to be, be ambulatory.
Right.
and be relatively healthy
And people don't
and have some
equate that.
strength. Yeah.
You know that, right? I mean, people don't equate weight. I mean, many people don't equate weight and 60 years old weight on knees and hips.
Yeah.
Hips and knees. They don't think of that. It's all of a sudden, I'm aged, blah, blah, blah. My hips and my knees are going.
But what happens when you get to my age, you see people your age
Right.
who are doing walkers and can't move around
Right.
and they're on carts in the grocery store and you go,
Right.
that's my age. I don't want to be that.
Right.
And I don't want to be that 10 years from now. So
And that's a mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, so there certainly we take into account and have compassion for people that have medical illnesses, but many people
Sure.
have medical illnesses that are in the same exact boat who aren't doing the lifestyle that would keep them in a walker or a chair or
Right.
whatever. They do because they don't want to feel like that. But that, I mean, going back to just the weight piece, weight on joints from hips down, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. If you can take, if you're a 300-pound person and your body frame's really supposed to be 150,
right.
that's a lot of pressure per square inch on your body to put down. And as you age, you become more tired, more
Yeah.
complacent. That's knee replacement, and hip replacement, but it's still weight. And you're going to put the weight back on
Yeah.
if nothing changes, nothing's going to change.
No, you're raised with a certain perspective, and it's hard to change. It's we talked about with weight, where you can do the one thing at 20, you can live one way at 20, but when you're 35, that's going to
Right.
put weight on you.
Right.
And if you're the person at 20 was always skinny, had the metabolism going, was an athlete, could have a few beers, and everything was fine,
Right.
you don't have that discipline. You don't have those tools to work with when you're 35, and all of a sudden you've got 20
If you
pounds
haven't-
on
right,
you.
especially if you haven't
Yeah.
been doing them, or if you've just
Right.
been so used to it. And I mean, because of our different systems of our hormonal systems and who we are as gender and so on and so forth, as soon as the 20s start shifting over into your 30s,
Yep.
it changes. And people, they're like, I don't have to work out, I don't have to do that, and all of a sudden,
Well,
at
I've always
30
been skinny.
yeah,
I've always been able to eat whatever I want.
right.
Yeah, well.
And for some people, not a lot, but for some people that works. But for most people that I come in contact with, and it doesn't have to be even in my clinical practice, it's that same affliction of, oh, I hit my 30s, I hit my 40s,
Yeah.
and to then implement something new and different, and they're like, oh, but I never had to do that before. Or I have women that come into my office and say, I had a baby or two babies, and I never had to exercise before, and now I can't get this 40 pounds off. And I say, well, we have to make some changes in the way that you think about things, obviously.
Yep.
Choices in what you're eating, and then activity. And people, I don't want to do that. I never had to do that before. So it's like, well, this is the pattern that's going to go if you don't do something about
But
it.
when you say activity, they think a 40-minute weight program, and that's not
Right.
what we're talking about. What we're talking
No.
about is go walk for 15 minutes.
Right.
And then extend it. When the weather gets better, extend it to a half an hour,
Half
an
an
hour.
hour.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the best things, and now I don't have a plug for a particular brand or anything, but I think one of the best things in terms of like the technology that's come out with like Fitbit, Apple iWatch, all those things, is now it reminds you every 15 minutes or every 10, it can say, stand up,
Yep.
drink water, move. And I know lots of people that are using that and have changed their lifestyle, even in that little bit, to move that. And
Back to
hey,
awareness.
that's
Yep.
just doing
Yep.
my job in a watch, essentially, of saying, become more aware of how much you sit. I mean, I love the fact that it will track amount of sleep. It will track the amount of time you are spent sitting and resting.
Yep.
Unfortunately, some of I always say they have to tweak some of these watches, though, because you can flap your arms up and down and it will register that you're moving. That is not correct, because people cheat the system with
Yeah.
that. But I mean, I think that's a really good thing, that if you can get yourself even on an iPhone or something that has
Yeah.
a reminder that serves as your like little psychologist on the side to say, hey, be aware, be mindful that you haven't moved in an hour. Be mindful that you haven't had any water today. When I started tracking that a couple years ago, I always thought I had enough water. It's you take your body weight.
Yeah.
Quick tip: take your body weight, split it in half, and that's how many ounces of water technically you should be drinking,
Good
give or
Lord.
take any physical
Yeah.
illnesses, right? General rule kind of,
Yeah.
right? Well, when you do that, you realize, wow, you haven't been drinking as much water as you should be, and plus you're visiting the toilet many more times
Yes.
a day. But you're realizing that, wow, that's one little lifestyle change that makes you not eat as much, makes you less tired in the HALT system, right?
Yep.
it also hydrates you, so that hydrates your whole emotional system in your brain, which actually makes you not as hungry. So just that
That's
one
the
little
toughest
change
thing for
in
me.
water
And all the health
consumption
things.
is just
Yeah.
moves everything emotional and body together. And it's amazing. People are like, I don't want to drink that much water.
I
Well,
know.
that's an easy,
It's so
people
easy.
want easy, quick fixes. I'm
Yeah.
like, just drink lots of water. Do the math on this and do it. And then, but people are resistant to that because it doesn't come in the shape of a quick fix
Not
pill,
instant
or why
gratification.
do I have to do that?
Yeah.
Because you do. But it's always interesting to me that, you have little fixes like that, but if you're not motivated because you don't see immediate
Oh,
results.
water and sleep, right?
Yep, water and sleep.
I know, but the water thing is so tough. That's been the toughest thing for me. It seems impossible to drink that much water. The amount of water you're supposed to be drinking.
But so I don't know about you, but do you drink other things during the day besides water?
Yeah, tea.
Okay. So
And that's a lot of water. I understand
right.
that.
So
Yeah.
if the only downside is if you're drinking caffeinated tea, you're dehydrating while
Yeah.
you're hydrating.
No caffeinated tea.
So it's not
Yeah.
caffeinated.
Right.
Okay. So you can count that as long as it's not caffeinated because it's the balance out of the counterintuitive production of the caffeine with the water. So you're splitting it out.
But and there might have been other stuff going on, but last summer, it was my birthday. It was late July last year. I'm in Texas
Yeah.
with a cousin, and they're in a 2-week stretch of 100+ days. They did 15 days straight of 100+. And I'm down there and I'm drinking water to beat the band just because it's 100+ in
Right.
Texas, and it's dry and it's, all that stuff. And I was sitting down there and we were going out to eat all the time, all barbecue. I lost weight.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know how big a role the water played, but I had water in my hand the whole time that trip down there.
Yeah. Well, you had water in your hand, plus you were probably a little bit more active than you are here because you were on vacation moving around,
Yep.
and it was hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you put those all together, and it was probably
Yep.
a combination.
But when you go on a trip and you sit there and you eat and you go into restaurants all the time, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to pay for this trip.
Right.
And it's like, no, I came back, losing weight, losing about 7 or 8 pounds, actually.
When I go on vacation, as much as this probably will annoy people, I always lose weight.
Really?
Because I'm more active.
More active.
Because my job for basically all day long, besides when I'm running or training for my stuff, which I do every day, I'm sitting for 10, 11, 12 hours a day, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Great job, but when I go away, I'm up and moving all the time. So even if I'm eating or having I'm still moving. So I tend to just drop a little bit more weight so I can do that. And most people don't do that. They go on vacation, cruises.
Yeah.
Go on a cruise and you come back 10 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
Because you're not active. But I don't do that. I go and do all the same activity plus more and then eat the same, and I still lose weight. And you get people that have that.
Cruises are ripe for that because there is really nothing else to do but eat.
Right.
And sit in the lounge chair.
Right. Sitting around. Yeah. And I mean, they have some more activities.
They have
but
activities,
it's based around food and all you can eat and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's not conducive to people who have the lifestyle that want to do that and do that anyway.
Yep.
It's just moving from the couch to the cruise ship and doing more of the same. And there's lots of people that do that, and they get to go to places, and that's fine. But I think, the cruises I've been on have been wonderful for a lot of people, that they do have activity people that come around now, at least on some of the cruises I've been on, that say, hey, there's this thing going on and we're going to bring it to you to the pool deck that's activity based. And you get more people involved, or come to the gym. And I was on a ship a couple years ago or 2 years ago I think the gym was as long as the ship.
Really?
On one of the decks. It was amazing. It was probably the best gym I've seen outside of just being on land that I've ever seen in my life. So it was quite something. And it was full. It was always full because they had classes and all kinds of stuff going on. And it was great. 4,500 people on a ship, and it was always full.
Wow.
Which was a huge shift, and I think I even see that now when I go into my gym. I see more people, after January you see tons of people.
Yeah.
January it's like packed. You can't get a machine.
Forget it. Yeah.
And then usually by February, you can get a machine anytime. Pretty consistently over the past 5 or 6 years, I've seen more and more and more people being in the gym beyond February, beyond March. I'm sure there's the drop off, and I'm sure they do all the math on that for the gyms, but just people wanting to have a better lifestyle, or having the adoption of, like what I say is just go in for 10 minutes.
Yep.
Because once you're there for 10 minutes, you know what happens.
Yeah.
10 minutes turns into 20,
Right.
or 20 turns into 30 because you're there.
Right.
I might as well because I'm here.
Yeah.
And then the person gets off the machine and is like, oh, that felt great. I didn't want to come, now the next day becomes a little easier.
Yeah.
Because you're just making that little teeny shift in the movement.
I
And
have
that's with any kind of goal.
I have to go through this every year because I have a few weights at home, but I walk a lot. And in the good weather, I'm walking on the beach. I
Yeah.
live near the beach, or I'm walking in town all the time. But when the weather gets bad and you can't do that, I've got to do that first trip to the gym every year, where
Yeah.
you just got to break the seal.
Yeah.
And just get in the gym. And oftentimes, that's what it comes down to. It's like, I'm going to do 200 calories on the treadmill.
Right.
And of course, you get there, and I'm an athlete. You must run into this before. You get to 200 calories. You go, no, I'm going to go to 250.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to 300. And you end up doing the 400 or 500 that you wanted to do.
Right.
But that's not, if you said, I'm going to go in and do 500, you're not going to go.
No, because it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
And you see it when you don't pay attention to it, you see it add up, then it's easier because you're coming from the positive side instead of the deficit side.
Yep.
And so I have my little obsessive compulsive thing is I always have to have an even number. So if it's at like 452
Yeah.
for calories, I'm like, I have to be at 500.
Yep.
So I'll
Oh,
go
no,
the
you
extra
can't.
time, no
You
matter
gotta-
how long it takes, just to get me there. And it won't be to 460 because it has to be like an increment that makes sense to me. We all do that.
Yep.
Athletes do that. People,
Yeah.
it's not 2.14 miles. It has to be.
Well, yeah, I'm trapped in that where I'll sit there and I go, I'm going to do 250 calories, and I get to 250 calories, and I'm at 1.9 miles. I go,
Right.
well, I got to do 2 miles,
Right.
and that gets you 275 or 300, and you go, well, I got to go to 350,
Right.
and then you got to round off both numbers.
Exactly.
It's like when you're at the gas tank,
Exactly.
at
And
the
most
gas
people
pump.
do
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So that's a benefit. I think
Yeah.
if people realize that, if you haven't been out there to make a lifestyle change, once you start doing that, that's actually what happens for most people, because most people won't be on a machine and say, oh, I hit 1.9 miles, I'm done because it's 25 minutes. They'll say, I want to complete the 2.
Right.
So they'll go that extra bump, which gives you that
Yeah.
push, and it's great.
And then you're at
because
27 minutes and go, well, I can do 30. I can do 3
Right.
more minutes.
Right.
And you just keep pushing yourself. But see, I think this is one of the important takeaway from this. First of all, is baby steps.
Yes.
And I think getting out of that mindset of having to solve everything right then and there, solve that 40 pounds, solve being lonely, solve your job situation today.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, I didn't, but I did this. I did what I could control today.
And to that point, I think that people, just don't have the patience to realize that the pattern that they're in took them that long as well. They
Yeah.
did that they baby stepped in. No one just became in a bad pattern like that.
Right.
That baby stepped in, and then it landed, there's no overnight success and there's no overnight defeat. It's pattern of time and practice of whatever the thing is. So if you have success, it's that pattern of building those baby steps over time. But people don't look at success like that. They think, overnight success, look at the
Yeah.
sensation. But that's not how
Well, they
it
only
is.
get the story. They only get the Facebook post, I lost 40 pounds.
Right,
It's like, well, okay, that might have been 6 months.
right,
Might have been a year.
right,
Which, by the way, is fine.
right,
That's damn good.
right,
40 pounds in a year.
right. But they don't know what the process was in between. And it's like, oh, they look at it as the end product. But it's really, it's not that. Or, this is one of the misnomers out in, the sort of the Hollywood, people have babies.
Oh.
And then the whole American culture of all women will look at the starlet who has had the baby, and 3 weeks later she's thin and back in shape, and and I remind my clients that have the eyes on that is they have no other job.
Yep.
Because they work once or twice a year on a movie or on a set, and they have 4 different trainers. They have people. They have handlers. They get to have
Right.
someone take care of their child, where they go to the gym and work out for 3 hours, and then they have someone
Right.
cooking
What
for
new
them.
mother can do that?
And so
What percentage of new mothers can do that?
Right. And so that's not real.
Yeah.
And so I always say that's wonderful for them, because good for them.
Yep.
But reality is that the rest of the culture, who isn't the 1% of the 1% who become famous movie stars, that's not what reality is. The reality is that we have life, and we have all these moving parts, and you have to do the best that you can to make sure that you have balance. And balance is always a journey. You might be able to get to the gym, or you might be able to do that. But man, if you look at it, there's the paralysis. You look at this person who they compare to and say,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, they look so great after 4 weeks or 6 weeks of being pregnant, and they're all back in shape and they look beautiful and their hair's, yeah, because that's not real.
Right.
It's smoke and mirrors. It's real for them, but not for everybody else. but that's the comparison point. And I think that that sets up the mental health decline a lot for people that I see across the board. Is I see an image, that image is what I idealize, but it's not real.
Well, the mental health decline, these problems with self-image
Yeah.
are largely self-created.
Yes.
We're constantly disappointing ourselves because the standards are too high or they're too quick.
Expectation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Adjust expectation. So I, in my one of the psych classes I teach, I often, I always play. Dove ran a campaign, a women's campaign to kind of gear towards the reality of what
The body image.
The body image.
Yep.
It's amazing if
Yep.
anyone gets a chance to go out and just do a Google search on the Dove challenge of like how, and it's like maybe a minute long clip of, they take a woman who's beautiful, who, natural, no makeup, no hair, and then it's all quick time, they do the whole thing, and then they finish her, all makeup, hair, and then they put the picture of the photo, and then they start moving eyebrows, nose, and then she ends up on a billboard at the end, and it basically, the message is things are not always as they seem,
right.
And that's the thing is people are like, oh, I see this picture of so-and-so, or I see this person on TV, they don't have cellulite, they don't have fat, they're not, and then I say, if you saw them in person,
yeah,
that's not what they would look like.
Right.
I mean, I run into enough people in that side of the world in terms of like famous or infamous, or people that are, and recognize enough to say, yeah, no, there's flaws. Everyone has acne. Everyone has pock marks. Everyone has a little cellulite or stretch marks, or no one comes out unscathed.
Yep.
And so I say, but they're still beautiful. But just see it for what it is.
Yeah. Hopefully, social media is kind of easing that, because people take their own pictures for Instagram, and they have all the filters, and they have all the ways they can clean themselves up, so they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Even at the top levels, this is what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I had at my event this weekend, people took pictures and posted up with selfies and stuff with me, and I giggled at a couple of them because they have that perfect filter. I'm like, wow, I look good on that. Wow, my skin's so smooth.
Yeah.
If that was only but it's can you sit with the reality of who you are and be okay with that? So many people love those filters because it makes them look real, and that the real in their mind in a different way, and think that that's what people are buying into. And I was like, that's not real, right?
Yeah. It's about changing your mindset, and it's about, this all sounds really granola, and it sounds like Hallmark sentiment, but it's about being happy with where you are, or happier with where you are. You don't have to be satisfied.
Right.
But you don't have to realize that where you are you don't have to think that where you are is a disaster. Because that's what your mind is telling you all the time.
Right. Or that you're not enough.
Yeah.
That's the message I always use, is that you're good enough. Where you are at right now is good enough.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that you're not going to get better, but you're always good enough. Everyone's born into the world good enough. And then it's what you make of it. And it's not, well, if you're not a superstar, if you're not the top of the line athlete, as one would say, you're not a Kobe Bryant, or you're not a Shaquille O'Neal, it doesn't matter, because you're good enough where you're at, because there's only 1% of the 1% of the 1% of those that can be that, and everybody else has to find their success in those things.
Yep.
It doesn't, it's who are you here, and are you okay in accepting, hey, I'm good, this is good. And that's not to be conceited or arrogant or narcissistic from a damaged ego. It's more like, I'm okay.
No, it's about the self-image of not being in a relationship, for example. And it's like, I don't want to be alone the rest of my life, but I can be alone tonight.
Right.
And being okay with that. That's okay.
Right.
Because we're just talking about tonight. Just deal with tonight.
Right. And putting aside, I'm okay being alone tonight, and nobody is judging me.
Yeah.
That's that secondary piece.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. But
ideally it doesn't matter. Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but it's about being able to say, nobody's judging me, because it doesn't matter that I'm alone, right? It doesn't matter that anyone, because there's lots of people alone, but people have that. It's with everything. Relationships, food.
Yeah.
It's all of those things. It's self-consciousness, lacking the self-esteem. It tears away at the self-esteem, and then it provides I'm worried about what people are going to think, which perpetuates the vicious cycle of just doing the same thing that isn't healthy.
Or anything. You've got a bunch of stuff. My girlfriend and I were talking about 10:30, 11 last night about next weekend. Next weekend's a little challenging from a schedule standpoint. We're going through it, and she's going on about it. I'm going, okay, it's 11 o'clock. There's nothing we can do about it tonight. It's next weekend. set it down for a while,
Yeah.
and let's watch this. Because there's nothing you can do about it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because right before I came in today to the studio, I was talking about I have a very busy weekend, not this coming weekend necessarily, but the following weekend. I'll be traveling for some business, and we were talking about like the plan, and I just giggled in my head. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna write down all the things that are planned,
Yep.
and then, because I know, like
Yeah.
I know the things I want to do, I know the things that have to be done, and then all the stuff that's in between, and I'm like. At some point, I know that there's going to be a period of time where it's really warm weather where I'm going, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm just going to not do anything.
Yep.
So I'm building in the plan that there's about 10 things that are going to fall off that list just because,
Yep.
and in years gone by, I would have been like, I had to hit all those things because it would have made me feel
you have your
good.
checklist, and you want to
Checklist.
check things off, and it's like, okay, maybe in your instance where you're traveling, maybe you got to take care of a flight as soon as possible.
Right.
But what you're going to do every day and every hour down there
Right.
doesn't have to be decided right now.
Exactly.
And by the way, going back to the whole plan thing,
Right.
why close off opportunity? You may decide to go out one night and meet somebody at a bar that in your business that
Right.
creates an opportunity.
And so to that point, that's one of the, so like for anybody, you miss opportunities when you stick to plans. I've actually, case in point, I've met some of the best network contacts of people or people that I've been able to help on the fly, traveling or doing something,
Yep.
or even in a day-to-day, just because I landed somewhere where I wasn't planning.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
because it wasn't in the structure. There's something said to be, something to be said for some structure.
Sure.
But you miss
Yeah,
out
we're
on
not saying don't
opportunities.
plan. We're just saying the plan isn't the end all be all,
Right.
right? Understand that things are going to change. You're going to have to deal with things.
Right.
Yeah.
So my takeaway for today, as we start getting ready to wrap up the show today, would be to adjust,
Mm-hmm.
be adjusting, not have high expectations that can't be reached. Set a high goal, but adjust the little goals or the baby steps
Yep.
along the way to get to that big goal, which is it's hard, but it was hard getting to where you are at now anyway. So you might as well
Yeah.
look at it that way. It's funny.
Most athletes, most teams, you've been in that situation. I say this all the time. Every once in a while, I look around and somebody say, I need a win right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a big win.
Right.
I just need a win.
Right.
Because they start to build. So the small goals where you set a goal that's accomplishable,
Right.
if that's a word, that you can accomplish, then you do it, you accomplish it, and go, all right, I'm on to the next thing. Let's go. That was great. Let's do the next thing.
And to that point, so I have an athlete currently that's getting ready to do a kind of a big thing, and he and I have been talking about don't focus on the thing that's going to end it, that's going to make it the big end. Focus on each time you go in to do the next piece of it. What is the focus of that piece?
Right.
And so he's been doing that, and that's been getting him actually a little further. And he'll either text or call and say, "Oh my God, I did
He's
it."
excited, isn't he? Yeah.
Because he's like, "Oh, it worked." Because he's not focused on. I said that will come. That's going to happen.
Right.
I know it's going to happen. He's like, "How do you know? How do you know?" I'm like, "Because if you do this,
Yep.
it will come. Because you're ready for that. That's just the
Because the end goal is the end result of a lot of these small processes.
Right.
Processes.
Right. But that's not how people think. But in
No.
the process of that, so hopefully people take away today that
Because they look at their neighbor and say they're further along in the process.
right.
And it's like, oh,
Well,
that's okay. You can't.
That's
yeah.
the takeaway is that people say they're further along in the process, but they don't actually say they're further along the process. They just say they're better than me.
Right.
They're faster than me. They win more. They don't say they're further along in the process. But that's where I would come in to say there's a process.
Right.
That you have to look at it that they are in the process and they might be further along because they're doing the process. You're not doing the process.
Right.
And people that don't have the success they want, they're successful, they're good enough, but they don't have the success they want because they're not doing a process. They're waiting for something to happen,
Right.
or they're making little bits happen, and then when it doesn't, they stop.
Yep.
That's it.
Instant gratification.
Right.
If it doesn't happen right away,
Right.
I can't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
When you right before we go here, I was laughing because frame of reference for baby steps. What About Bob, the movie? Did you ever see What About Bob with Richard Dreyfuss and
Yeah.
and
Bill Murray?
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Yes. So, a psychiatrist here in the Boston area, Richard Dreyfuss, and he wrote the book Baby Steps. So when you kept referencing it, I'm giggling because it's really,
Yeah.
although it's a very funny movie and whatever. Bill Murray was told to take baby steps, and he ended up driving his psychiatrist completely insane.
Yes.
But nonetheless,
By baby steps.
But he was great at the end of it. So great show today. Thank you so much, Lou.
Yep. Contact information is at the bottom of the screen.
Yes. So Gameface Sport Consulting, and this is your Daily Game Face, and certainly I look forward to seeing all of you next week. Thanks so much.